exploring the multiverse of pop culture.
This is Casserole,
an Adam and JP show.
Welcome to another bonus episode of Casserole. I'm Jay Patrick. Today I chat with an old dear friend of mine. You know, one of the interesting things about radio and having a long career in radio is that if you stick around long enough, you find yourself working with the same people in different locations, which is exactly what happened with Jonathan and I. I worked with Shaffer like 10 years ago for a different company in one building, and now a decade later, we find ourselves working together in another location for another company. And right now, Jonathan Shaffer is co-host of Sports Night along with George Plaster, and that airs Sunday nights, 5 to 7 Central Time on 650 AM WSM. You can also check it out by downloading the WSM app or listening to WSMonline.com. In addition to his hosting duties on that show, Shaffer is also the program director for 650 AM WSM. And like I said, we worked together years ago, and now we work together again. And when I decided to start trying to do these bonus episodes every now and then, I was like, hey, we should sit down and chat sometime. We should talk about radio. And then Wrestlemania happened, and we talk about it a little bit in our conversation, that we got to work day after WrestleMania. I get out, and I say, one of the 10 best WrestleManias of all time. And he said, oh, we got to record this podcast today. And that's what we're going to talk about. So that's what we do. We kind of break down WrestleMania 2018. What was it, 34, 33, 34? WrestleMania 2018 is what we're going to break down. And check out Shaffer's show. It's on, like I said, Sunday nights from 5 to 7 Central Time on 650 AM WSM. Here's my chat with program director and Sports Night co-host Jonathan Shaffer. So, Jonathan Shaffer.
It's your show.
Yes, it is my show. Thank you.
By the way, I love certain casseroles. Not all casseroles, but definitely pod casserole.
Really? That's how we're starting? You're going to start with that? All right. How long have we known each other?
2004. It would
2004.
It would be the fall of 2004. I started at our previous employer October of 2004. So we've at least been in the same orbits since then. So this October will be our 14th anniversary. Aw.
And we didn't speak for the first 10 years.
I can't believe we're speaking now.
Now, I want to get you on here at some point where we talk about radio and your history in radio and stuff that we've done and, you know, where it's going.
It's all crap.
We'll talk about podcasts. You listen to a lot of podcasts.
I do. Actually, today, whatever day of the week this is, I was listening to two today. Mark Maron talking to Bill Simmons.
Casserole.
And Casserole. With the always effervescent Elio edition, the bonus episode.
That was fun.
Actually, I'm about to hear that. I haven't listened to that one yet, but I listened to Mark Maron today. I'll usually listen to the Tony Kornheiser show, which is now a podcast. It used to be a radio show / podcast, and now it's a podcast with a radio show format. I'll listen to ESPN FC, which is just their TV show in a podcast form, so it's not a true podcast. Bruce Pritchard. Something to wrestle or something to wrestle with or whatever the actual name of it is. I don't think there's an official title. So I'll listen to Bruce Pritchard. Cheap Heat with Peter Rosenberg. That goes through ESPN. Right. ENC's Pod of Awesomeness, I think is the name of it, with Edge and Christian. I'll listen to that. I love when they talk to Tommy Dreamer. Tommy. Yeah, those are the ones just off the top of my head.
So you listen to a lot of wrestling podcasts.
Yes, that's how I stay informed.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're a sports guy. As a matter of fact,
I find that to be a very limiting term, but yes, I am a sports guy.
Sorry, I don't mean to label. Just wait till you see where I'm going with it. I'm actually trying to put you over to use the terminology of what we'll be talking about today.
Well, then I'll shut up.
You can listen to you on Sports Night every Sunday night. Central Time, it's what, 5 to
7?
7?
Yeah.
Central Time on 6:50 AM WSM or streaming on the WSM app, no matter where you are.
Yeah, once you get to a certain age, streaming becomes more of an issue, but yes.
Wow. Really? Are you speaking from experience?
No comment.
I got a good, strong stream. I got a solid, strong stream. We both watched WrestleMania last night.
Yeah.
This started, I wanted to do an interview with you. And then this kind of morphed into what we're about to do. Mm-hmm. We arrived at work today at the same time. I get out of the car. First thing I say to you, hot take, one of the 10 best WrestleManias of all time.
And I went, yeah, maybe.
Was it 33? 34?
I lose track. It's
33.
I think it's 34. I think this is actually 30. This is 34. Yeah, this was 34.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it started in 85.
Math. Not trying to do math.
I don't know.
But
it was WrestleMania 34.
The only WrestleMania I absolutely know in terms of number is 3. Because it's Hulk and Andre.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only one that I can actually remember, the number. All the rest are just WrestleMania for whatever year it was. But it was a good WrestleMania.
It was a solid WrestleMania.
Yes, I agree with that. Mm-hmm. And it had, going into it, I thought that was the best card up and down of any WrestleMania in history. In terms
Are you talking about last night?
I really did. I thought
okay.
I thought the depth of the roster, the depth of the card was the best overall depth of any card in WrestleMania history. Maybe not as much star power in terms of legendary wrestlers. You didn't have The Rock on there. There was no Steve Austin. You didn't have so much of that, but I thought in terms of pure wrestling, the deepest card they ever had. And I'm now also convinced that WrestleMania, the actual event WrestleMania, needs to be a 2-day event.
I agree with that because that pay-per-view was almost 6 hours long last night.
Yeah, and it was after...
That's not including the pre-show.
That was after midnight Eastern time, and by the time it got to 10:30, 11 o'clock Central, and it still wasn't over, I'm going, this is tough.
It was a long night.
I felt that way last year. This year, it didn't feel as long, aside from Triple H's insistence on dad trikes. But other than that, I thought it didn't feel as long. It was a very good card, but it is way too long. They got to do this 2 days now.
I would not mind that, a 2-day event.
And I think NXT, and I'm not a huge NXT fan, but I thought NXT TakeOver was a really, really good pay-per-view.
I think this WrestleMania was the culmination of the initiatives that the WWE has put into place over the years. It's the first big culmination of that, from the new cruiserweight that was the new cruiserweight champion that was crowned in the pre-show.
Yeah, Cedric Alexander.
Up to the the Brock and Roman Reigns match at the end.
Do you want to go to Brock and Roman?
You want to start
because
there?
Because it pissed me off.
Oh, okay, let's hear this.
I didn't like
now, remember,
Brock and Roman.
You still hadn't answered my question. You think 10... Is it in the top 10 WrestleManias of all time?
I think it's in the conversation because we're doing this very quickly after WrestleMania, not even 24 hours from the end of WrestleMania, so I'd actually have to sit down and look and see. I think it's in the ballpark. Mm-hmm. I think it was a very solid WrestleMania. If you were to do the Dave Meltzer 5-star system, I'd give it 3.5. I thought it was a 3.5 WrestleMania.
The Charlotte Flair match was a 5-star match.
Well, hot take time. Charlotte Flair is going to go down as the greatest professional female wrestler in history.
Okay, and we'll get to that, but I want to hear. We'll start with the Roman. We'll start with the Roman Brock match.
Crap.
No, it was not.
That match was crap.
No, it was not.
It was poorly booked. The Crimson Mask was gross because I was around wrestling people and even females who are wrestling fans, and they were even like, ew.
I think it went a little. I think it was a little more than they thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that was not a good match. We all got hoodwinked into thinking, well, is Brock going to UFC? Now, look, with Brock Lesnar,
he still might be. He could drop, as we were recording this, we haven't seen Raw following WrestleMania, so he could drop that title tonight.
I have been over Brock Lesnar for over a year. I'm over it because he's going to, in terms of his athleticism and his power, it really is unparalleled. The mix of tools that he brings to the ring. I'm tired of the gimmick. I'm tired of the routine. I'm tired of the German suplexes. I'm tired of the entire thing. So I took my expectation going into WrestleMania saying, Brock, please go away.
Really?
Please go away, Brock. At least for a little while, go away. I'm tired of watching your Barney Rubble teeth and your oddly shaped head with your weird haircut. I'm done.
Here's why I still like Brock Lesnar. In a world that we live in now with social media, with social media, and everybody knows what's going to happen, and everybody's a smart fan now, and everybody likes to guess, and we all thought Brock was going to drop the title, and they swerved us at the end. But here's why I'm not over Brock Lesnar, because with all of that said, he is possibly the most legitimate champion they could have at this point in history. Because I think even with Brock, because we all kind of know that, Brock's not one of the guys. He's not, laughing it up and high-fiving with everybody backstage. He's there to make his money and go home. He is what he said he was when he came back, and he's a prize fighter. That's what he is.
But I'm over it. I'm done with it. So, that's the thing with me, is that I don't know where you go now with Brock Lesnar. Because I thought the person that they should have put over with Brock Lesnar, well, they didn't put Roman over. Braun Strowman was the person you put over with Brock Lesnar, which they may still do. Mm-hmm. They could still do that. Mm-hmm. I'm tired of the gimmick. The only thing about Brock Lesnar I would miss if he was gone is Paul Heyman, and Paul Heyman does not have to leave.
No, because he was there with CM Punk when Lesnar came back. Correct?
Am I right about that? I'm done with Brock Lesnar. You are correct. I'm done with Brock Lesnar. You mentioned the legitimacy thing. I'm played out with that. I don't care anymore. I don't know where you go anymore with Brock Lesnar. Now, with that said, that doesn't mean the WWE doesn't have a very good plan moving forward with what they do.
Right.
But not only that, to do all those F5s, all those German suplexes, to have Roman get color, it was a terribly booked match.
I don't think so.
It was a fart in church to end WrestleMania, and no one wants that.
Because I think going in, we all thought this would be the match where Roman stepped up, and he did, and I'll explain that in a second. This could have been the match that changed the perception of Roman Reigns. And I think that was the purpose of this match. But once again, Brock shows up and is the unbeatable monster, just like what he did to John Cena at SummerSlam a few years ago. It was a very similar match. It was all Brock. And there was a couple of moments where Reigns was trying to mount a comeback. It didn't happen. And he ended up, in the end, not winning the match, not being the new champion. And for the first time, and I can't remember, they actually used blood in the match. And I think that's the kind of match that you do that with. I think it helped, much like the Bret Hart Steve Austin match at WrestleMania 13.
I don't think using blood was bad. I just think circumstantially it just looked ugly and things didn't go well.
I think the plan might have been good. It was a lot.
The execution was bad.
A lot. Yeah. And I still don't know if it was Blade or if it was
Hardway.
I don't know.
I
don't know.
They tried to make it look like Hardway, which then made me think it was Blade because he took his I don't know. But
he never hit him with his fist.
The blade,
he hit him with his elbow.
But the blade may have occurred when the camera was looking at Brock taking his gloves off.
And it was right up. You could see the cut was right up
in the hairline, which is what you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. So if it was a blade job, you had somebody who's not terribly experienced at doing a blade job go way too deep. And when they saw him with the crimson mask and you saw the amount of blood that was coming up, I'm sitting there going, okay, they need this to go home immediately because he went too deep and you didn't want an Eddie Guerrero situation on your hands. So with Roman, you want to make Roman more of a sympathetic character. They're always going to want to put him over as a babyface. Let Roman be Roman. The best thing they can do with this guy is leave him alone.
But see, that's the problem with it. He doesn't know what he's been since he doesn't know what he's supposed to be since he's been there.
Disagree.
And here's the what I would say as to how this was the best possible outcome for Roman Reigns. Didn't make him sympathetic. It made him look tough. And the best scene in that entire match was after the WrestleMania montage at the end of the show and him walking up the ramp, bloodied, battered, but he still walked up the ramp to his music. This might have been the one that puts him over with the fans in a positive way.
100% disagree that it made him look tough. because I think once again with Roman Reigns, they were trying way too hard. The amount of finishers, I should say, that Brock Lesnar put on Roman Reigns, it went from realistic to ridiculous. It crossed that thin line into, okay, this is now just absurd. And you're now pushing this storyline so hard that I don't have a buy-in for this. I don't think it made him look tough because I think anybody with a clue looked at Roman Reigns and thought, this is a pretty tough guy anyway. Because with Roman Reigns, he's not an A-plus performer, 5-star guy. He's good in almost every match he's in. He's a very good performer. I think Roman Reigns has been slagged on way too much. I think creative has screwed him up. He's at his best when he's going out there, cutting a promo and being kind of a smartass, being a little bit of a dick. Not mean, but just with a little bit of that edge to him. I thought his character was at its best when they did the work shoot with Cena. I thought that was the Roman Reigns character. I think what they did last night just bungled that all up because, 5 F5s and all the German suplexes. It didn't make Roman Reigns look tough. And for all the people that don't want to put Roman Reigns over, yes, he won Elimination Chamber. He was second in the Royal Rumble, got Nakamura over. He has had the crap beat out of him for the past year. I mean, how much more and how often do they need to beat this guy up in their pursuit to have him be practically a white meat babyface? I think it is bungled. I thought last night didn't make any sense, which doesn't mean that they don't have a good idea moving forward because we don't know what the plan is. I didn't like the main event at all, and I would say your argument is WrestleMania, this most recent one of the top 10 WrestleManias of all time. I would easily put that main event in the top 10 worst main events in WrestleMania
I totally
history.
disagree with that. And
wretched.
here's why. If you followed that storyline, the storyline up to this point has been how tough is Roman Reigns? That's what they were going with.
Sure.
Because he's fought Brock before. It's not you can't build it as Reigns meets Lesnar for the first time.
But that's the fundamental problem. They don't need to prove that Roman Reigns is tough.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
Because the fans have not accepted him. The worst thing they did was have him beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania. That was the worst thing they did for Reigns in the last few years.
I would agree with that.
Because it was too soon, and then it became clearly apparent that he needed more maturing, especially on the microphone. So he wasn't the big dog. It wasn't his yard. So they've backed off that. And he has gotten beat up for 6 weeks straight from, being handcuffed to all this stuff they've done with him leading up to this match. And I think this is the only way this match could have ended. Lesnar retains, beats up Reigns one more time. And now you have a beaten, battered, but reinvigorated Roman Reigns that the fans can finally get behind. And I think that was the purpose. Now, what happens next, I don't know. I would assume that probably Vince... And now, with Dana White in the crowd, and they showed Dana White on camera, 4 times, Brock's not going back to the UFC. Because there's no way Brock's about to leave after tonight, and you have Dana White in the crowd, and they keep showing... Even if he was there, they didn't have to show him on camera.
He still has to serve a suspension.
That's true. And... he does have to serve, which is
That's
what
right. He still has to finish.
So if he's got
I think it's 6 months. I think
which
maybe
means
a year.
You're probably 2 years away from a fight.
Well, at his age.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. At 2 years, you're away from a fight in the UFC.
Right.
He's not. This was just, and I think I think Paul Heyman played right along with him. If you saw the induction speech that Heyman did at the Hall of Fame, it was short and sweet and seemed like he was leaving too. And I think they'll both be around for a while.
I thought the storyline was very heavy-handed. I feel like they took this finish and rammed it down everybody's throats. I really think when it comes to Roman Reigns, this creative team, and I have a good friend of mine who was on the SmackDown writing roster a decade ago. No one knows how hard that job is except the people that have done that job. Mm-hmm. But I think with Roman Reigns, they have been so heavy-handed with what they're trying to tell the audience and get them to accept with Roman Reigns that I think last night was another misstep. I don't think it helped Roman at all. I really don't.
I guess we'll see as we go forward. I do think it will, though. I think, to your point, of all the missteps they've had with him along the way, it's kind of like what they did with Cena 15 years ago, where they kept pushing Cena and kept pushing Cena to the point that the fans never bought it. So what they did with Cena was just have him play into that, which was the smartest thing they could have done. I think with Roman, they're trying to make him a beaten, reinvigorated person. And we'll see if that happens.
But I don't think they needed to do that.
Well, that's debatable, but you have to go back and examine what they've done with him since The Shield. And we don't have that kind of time. What about
patience.
What about the Rousey debut, Ronda Rousey? The new hot rod.
Okay, so some people are saying that it's the best celebrity debut in WrestleMania history. First of all, yes, she is a celebrity.
By the way, that's Drew Carey at WrestleMania, but continue. Royal Rumble.
I still think it's Pete Rose. Bob Uecker getting choked by Andre the Giant. I don't know if that'll ever be topped.
You can't. They still show it.
But with Ronda Rousey, yes, she has celebrity attached to her, but she's a competitor. She's on the roster. She's going to compete moving forward. So I don't want to put her in that celebrity category. These are my takeaways from that match. As poorly as Lesnar Reigns was booked, the complete opposite is true for this match. I thought it was brilliantly booked, aside from the Herman Munster trike coming
why
down.
are you so down on Triple H has a great entrance every year at WrestleMania.
That entrance was ridiculous.
I thought it was great.
Ridiculous entrance.
It was entertaining.
The only thing that made me
happy... He had the skull mask on and everything.
The only thing... He's got to stop with the Skeletor fetish, okay? This is getting a little weird.
Well, it's been 10 years, so...
I mean, this is... Look, if that's the underwear he's wearing to bed, that's his business. But this Skeletor fetish has got to stop. The trike thing... He looked a little weird physically. Triple H is now starting to kind of cross that line.
Well, he's becoming an old man.
He is looking like an old man.
He's becoming an old man.
Now,
he's 50 yet? Is he 50?
I'm not sure. But we'll go back to the match in a moment. The people that I was watching the event with, we were joking around that every time Kurt Angle got thrown out of the ring, there was actually a tanning bed underneath that he would go in, get 5 minutes of tan, and then come back out, which I thought was hilarious because usually people aren't artificially darker than Triple H. Kurt Angle had a good run on that.
He did. He had a nice bronze.
Don't know if he was in the tanning bed or if he was getting the tanning spray. He looked very brown, and especially from a guy from Western Pennsylvania. Trust me on that. Now, to go back to Triple H and this match, it reinforced to me that Stephanie McMahon is the top villain, the top heel in this company, not by a short distance, but by miles. And she's great at it. I thought she did a pretty good job in the ring. I thought this was booked very well in the old Paul Heyman booking strategy. Make the strengths stronger and hide the weaknesses. And I thought they did a brilliant job of that. Kurt Angle came in, did a few things, and looked strong.
Angle looks so much better. I was scared to see what he would look like.
Sure, we all were.
And he pulled off the angle slam and the angle lock and everything you wanted to see from Kurt, you got.
I thought Triple H, in terms of the selling with Ronda Rousey, I thought them having Ronda Rousey engage in combat with Triple H, the one thing I will always give Triple H credit for, even though I'm of the Jim Cornette philosophy that Triple H has never been the man, he's always been the man next to the man. Just my feeling. Triple H is very, very good at telling a story in the ring. And I thought the stories that they were trying to tell during this match was done extremely well. I think they played into the skill set of all four competitors extremely well. Match went longer than all of our expectations. I think the E did a good job of lowering those expectations coming in because it was probably the one match I was looking forward to the least. And I came away from it similarly to how I came away from McGregor Mayweather and went, you know what? That was okay. That wasn't too bad. I thought it was a brilliantly booked match. That's what impressed me about it. And in terms of if I was to grade it, I'd give it a B, maybe even a B+. I thought I still don't know if Ronda Rousey's a good wrestler, but they let Ronda be Ronda. And when she came in there and she looked like a badass, thought it was an extremely well-booked match, albeit still probably about 5 or 10 minutes too long. I think they could have told that whole story in a shorter period of time, and I think that affected the other matches around them, but that's WrestleMania. That's always going to happen until they make it 2 days.
That's true. Here's what I thought it was a great match. It was so much better than I thought it would be.
Sure.
It was fun. That's the thing about that match. It might have been the most fun match of the night.
Could have been.
And a lot of that is due to Triple H versus Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
I mean, when she put Triple H up on her shoulders, that was crazy.
That was great.
I never saw that coming. I never thought they would go there with her. They would play into her strength. Because when, physically, she's not, overbearing physically. You don't think she's going to pick Triple H up. And she did. And she struggled a little bit, but she got him up on her shoulders.
It reminded everyone that she's a tremendous athlete.
Yes, absolutely. And here's the challenge going forward for her. She was in there with Kurt Angle, Triple H, and Stephanie McMahon. All three of them had one goal in that match, and that was make her look the best she could. How does that continue when she's in a match in a couple of weeks with Alexa Bliss?
You don't have Ronda wrestle aside from pay-per-views.
You don't think so?
She never wrestles on Raw unless it's a squash match. Mm-hmm. Or there's a lot of gaga involved and it's a schmoz. You don't let Ronda really wrestle until there's pay-per-views on the line. Because when you're talking about the prize fighter thing, Ronda's coming at it from a different angle, but she has that same prize fighter element to her because when you're watching that match and you see her pick up Triple H, you pop for a minute, but then you go, this is not unrealistic. Mm-mm. She's a badass. Mm-hmm. Look, this woman, when it comes to the female division, basically built the female division in UFC. Forget how her career ended, either permanently or temporarily. She's an outstanding athlete. And I think they got everything that they needed out of Ronda in that match. They got everything they needed out of Stephanie. I liked that it looked very physical. My feeling is Triple H was the one who really laid out that match and booked it. Mm-hmm. And I'm always going to be a bigger fan of Triple H, the booker and storyteller, than I am Triple H, the wrestler. Because we were joking around at the beginning of that match. It wasn't just slow. That match was slower than the Titanic sinking. I mean, it was slow.
No, it was not a fast match.
Start. No,
it was not a fast match.
And you knew it was going to be slow because of the age of everybody involved, the lack of experience between the female wrestlers. But I don't think you could have asked that match to be any better than what it was. And I think that was really one of the matches that gives validity to your argument of a top 10 WrestleMania.
I totally agree because it was just a great story. And Ronda, I was so pleased to see that she sold.
Yeah.
She took it seriously. It's obviously she spent time preparing for that match. And really, as far as like her participation in the match, my only complaint falls on the Stephanie Ronda portions of that match. I don't think Stephanie McMahon should be able to counter anything that Ronda Rousey does. I just don't think that's realistic.
I agree with that, but in terms of perpetuating the story in the match, that was one of those moments you could suspend disbelief. Mm-hmm. You could go with it.
And it gave a good ending. When she was actually finally able to break it and get the arm lock in, and she submitted.
It was the ending you expected. I think it was not one of the better matches, but in terms of just sheer entertainment value and going, oh, that was good. Yeah, I thought everything that they wanted to accomplish in that match, they got done.
And much like the blood at the end of the night, more male on female conflict in that match than I was expecting to see.
Totally fine with that. Because again, it fit into the context of the story. Ronda was daring Triple H. Triple H put the referee aside in the corner. And I'm actually one of the people that thinks male-female combat in pro wrestling now should be more encouraged than it's ever been.
As long as it's done like that.
Exactly.
Not like it was in the Attitude Era.
Right.
Where there were thongs and bikinis involved and everything.
It has to be done contextually. Mm-hmm. That's a situation where you're looking at a UFC champion.
Right.
And that UFC champion was not Triple H. It was Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
So there was that air of legitimacy that you mentioned with Lesnar. You had that with Ronda Rousey where you sit there and think, yeah, Ronda Rousey could kick his rear end. Mm-hmm. It was a well-done story.
Well, what about the AJ Styles match?
I think the AJ Styles Nakamura match was everything I thought it should be. It reminded me that AJ Styles
At 40.
truly is, no pun intended, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Everything he does is almost sheer perfection.
His performance over the last year or so reminds me of HBK, when HBK came back from his injury and had that last run of his career that went on almost a decade.
And what's surprising with AJ Styles is even at 40, you can see him being at this high of a level for maybe another 5 or 6 years.
Totally agree.
Which you don't see anybody in their mid-40s wrestling at the level that AJ Styles is. That match was everything I thought it should be. I thought the crowd was slightly dead. It was a little low.
It had been a long night.
But
that's the problem with having the main events at the end of a 6-hour event.
But they popped at the right times. And there was that will he or won't he at the end with Nakamura, because I'm sitting there going, I thought they were going to play it straight with Charlotte and Asuka, or are they going to have Nakamura, give him the old heave-ho underneath? And I have witnesses to this. Literally a second or two before, Nakamura gave him a little bit of the undercarriage, if you will, the low blow.
The nut shot.
The Ric Flair is the dirtiest player in the game. But again, they set it up to where, okay, will he or won't he? That was classic old school booking. It wasn't overthought. It wasn't overplanned. You had a great match with two world-class performers. Not a 5-star match, but I don't think there's any way you could have lived up to the hype going into it. And that's actually a situation where the hype might have been a little too long in today's society going into that match. But I loved the ending. We're going to get Styles Nakamura 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll be enthralled to watch every single match. I think they could go 3 to 5 in this series, and the matches later on in this series will actually be better matches than what we saw last night, and last night was really, really good.
Yeah, that's one of those matches where the best thing for Nakamura was to not get the title.
Exactly.
Because the chase for the title is always more interesting than when you have the title.
Right.
And he's got, like you said, another great 3, 4, 5 matches.
And he's a natural heel. With all that charisma, the Michael Jackson thing, I've become a Nakamura mark because he is totally original. He's got elements of Prince. He's got elements of Michael Jackson. I don't know if there's a wrestler that could be any more in the moment than that guy. But he's a natural heel. And what I like is he's going to be a natural heel, but not a foreign heel. Where so many times over the years they'll do the whole foreign heel thing. No, he's just a badass. Him and AJ Styles are going to beat the crap out of each other for the next 2 years. And this is what you're going to be telling your kids 20 years from now, that you watched two of the best performers of their time in this classic series. I thought the booking of that match and the booking at the end, again, was done very well and gives credence to your top 10 argument.
And a clinic on how to sell in a wrestling match. A clinic. I mean, there was stuff that happened early in that match that they were still feeling the repercussions from later in the match. AJ's back, Nakamura's leg. It played into it the entire match. And that you don't see enough of that in today's wrestling, where, they'll sell when it happens and then they don't feel any pain from a chair shot 20 minutes later.
Well, it was strong style. Those guys were laying in the hits.
Hey, that can be said about the entire event. It was a very physical WrestleMania.
Except the moment where Undertaker was going to give Cena the boot, and they missed by miles.
Wow. Yeah, well, it was
that one was really, really bad. The room I was in, everybody went, "Oh," because they really missed that one up.
Yeah,
I think it was more the Undertaker than it was Cena. I think Cena did time it right, and the Undertaker just kind of missed because, hey, he hasn't been in a ring in a year.
Right.
Aside from that, everything in that match went fine, but that was the only. To have 1 million hours of consecutive wrestling like they did, and that's the only moment you look back on and go, ooh, that was cringeworthy. Because even though I didn't like the Lesnar-Reigns match, there was nothing cringeworthy about its execution. It was executed well. I just didn't like the storytelling. Just that moment where Undertaker was going to give Cena the boot, and they just missed by miles. It was the old Roddy Piper, Mr. T fight where Mr. T swung at him and missed him by 4 feet. I mean, It wasn't good.
So do you think having the Undertaker Cena, which I think it should have been like another hour or so into the night before you realized Cena was going to wrestle? It was pretty early in the night when the ref came and got him and he went backstage, yada, yada, yada.
I have different feelings about this. I like what they tried to do because you no longer need Undertaker or Cena to sell WrestleMania. WrestleMania now sells itself. They never would have tried something like this in any other year in their history of WrestleMania. So I like the ambitiousness. I like that they tried to do something different. So even though I thought the storyline and its execution was a bit up and down, Cena kind of being heel and making Undertaker look a bit sympathetic, and Cena just coming off as kind of a dick, and it was just off of character. It was weird. I mean, the whole thing was kind of weird. I thought they told the story pretty well throughout WrestleMania. I thought they got to the point where it was utterly predictable. I love that they brought the 1990s lightning back because it just made me laugh.
That was awesome.
I LOL'd on that one.
That was just a TV effect, though, right?
That was a TV effect.
Just like the Miz 3D thing when he came out was just a TV effect.
Asuka with the masks was
Yeah.
but it was really cool.
Yeah, it was really good.
I really liked it.
Yeah.
By the way, we'll go back to Cena and Undertaker in a moment. Maybe the best set they've ever had for WrestleMania.
Oh, absolutely.
The set was fantastic.
Like last year's in Orlando with the roller coaster, it was too busy.
Yeah, and the one out in Santa Clara in San Francisco stunk. I thought that set
was gorgeous.
They did it extremely. That's a top 3 WrestleMania set.
And the ramp was long, but not too long.
Exactly. Except if you had Triple H's trike, it wasn't long enough. Wow. But that was a great set. And again, I'm kind of torn when it comes to Cena Undertaker. It made sense that it was a squash, but actually I would have liked if Cena would have kicked out of a couple of finishers and drawn it out maybe another 10 minutes. I thought they played the Undertaker's strengths really well. That's the best he's moved in years.
Well,
he looked great with a new hip.
And I think that's why it was 5 minutes.
I agree with that, too. The joke we were making is that Undertaker is going to bypass his WrestleMania bonus and just ask for another hip. But I wasn't fully satisfied with the match. It made sense that it was a squash, and not that it hurt Cena, because nothing really hurts Cena. But now I'm kind of tired of Cena, and I'm kind of tired of... I'm so glad that Cena, over the course of his career, has been willing to do the job, because I think that's what puts Cena on the Mount Rushmore of the 2000s and 2010s.
I think that's what put Triple H on that, too.
Very much
because
so.
He made Cena by losing to Cena at like 4 or 5 consecutive pay-per-views.
I would have liked if the match was not a lot more competitive. It didn't have to go 20, 25 minutes. We didn't need that. I would have liked if it was a little more competitive. But again, in terms of storytelling, they went out there, did what they had to do, got it done, thought it was very clinical. Undertaker looked like $1 million. Cena's going to go off to Hollywood for 3 to 6 months. So the execution was pretty good, but I found that match just a little lacking. It's those things that keep this WrestleMania from all-time greatness are those small things like that to me.
Even Elias coming out and singing
Brilliant.
House of the Rising Sun.
Loved it. I joked around that apparently he got into Steven Tyler's Road Locker, and grabbed some of his garb. When he was singing House of the Rising Sun, I'm like, you get some Eric Burton, man. You get some animals up here in WrestleMania. I was really proud of that.
That was pretty awesome.
The perfect use of Elias. Absolutely perfect use of Elias, because he had a thing with Cena a few months back, which was actually pretty good. Elias is going to be a much bigger player in the next couple of years. I thought the use of Elias was absolutely perfect in WrestleMania. I thought that was dead on.
I look at it like this. It's WrestleMania. It's fun to see The Undertaker back in WrestleMania. It's fun to see John Cena.
Completely fair.
It keeps the streak of seeing The Undertaker at WrestleMania going.
So your feeling on Braun Strowman having a child be his tag team partner?
I thought it was fun. I think
fun.
At any other WrestleMania, that could have run the risk of going really wrong.
David Arquette.
And really bad. But I thought it was fun. I think the bar helps that, because I think they're pretty good at playing up the comedy. And to have him go out into the crowd, and I thought it was a little girl, honestly, at first.
We all thought it was a girl.
And then it was just a long-haired little kid named Nicholas.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's won half of the tag team champions now. And the stuff online after that was better than the match.
And this is where
the response to it.
I go back to your point earlier. Okay, they never would have done a tease Undertaker Cena in any other year, aside from this year the way they did it. They never would have done something like this in previous years.
No.
Because they realize, okay, the titles are a prop, which is fine because that's what they are. You're dealing with Sheamus and Cesaro, guys that you don't have to worry about wrecking them because they'll be fine. We all pretty much knew Strowman was going to come away with the tag team titles. So if you're looking at the silliness of the angle itself, one man versus two, and us pretty much knowing he's going to win it, then just play up the silliness. And the fact that Strowman came out and did the stand-up bass thing with Elias several months ago, and you know that Strowman is really funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a big man with likability. And you don't get that a lot.
You never get that.
I mean, they could make him just the monster that Brock Lesnar is. But right now, Brock is the unstoppable monster. So why not have some fun with Braun Strowman? I think he's great. He's a lot of fun to watch. Like you said, the bass stuff, him knocking or flipping or pushing the Mardi Gras float off the stage.
Funny.
And the Mardi Gras characters running from him in horror. I mean, that was really funny.
I think everything right now that Braun Strowman is doing, he's a couple of years away from being the biggest draw in the company. Because people aren't going to be scared of him. Kids can embrace him. Females can embrace him because he's just got this big cuddly teddy bear thing. Oh, yeah, and he's also a beast, no pun intended, Brock Lesnar. I think what happened between Lesnar and Reigns serves Braun Strowman better than it serves Roman Reigns. Because, yeah, we've already seen Strowman and Lesnar, and I don't think they handled it particularly well. They kind of squashed Strowman a little bit. I thought the stuff with Strowman was really good. And I liked
I think they realized it was too soon for that. And that's why they pulled back on that. Because that's a main event at WrestleMania next year.
I would agree with that. And I like... here's another one where I felt a little conflicted about. Nia Jax and Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss, phenomenal heel. Great heel. They took Mickie James out early. Thought that was a good move. Did a good job with that. Nia Jax deserved it. She won it. Very happy for her. I think you'll have Nia Jax go up against Charlotte when they combine the titles once again here in the next several weeks and put reunify these titles again. But WWE priding themselves on the anti-bullying campaign and doing all that, and basically this whole storyline was built on body shaming and mean girls and bullying. So you get...
Yeah, but in the end...
She won.
The moral of the story is, in the end, she won.
I understand that, but to go and say all these other things in the one area and then you kind of use a cheap-ass tactic like that?
Yeah, but that's wrestling, man. That's old-school wrestling.
This is where I'm being very smarky.
Yeah.
I know that.
But
my smarkness is showing.
I mean, there's so many monikers that they used to call each other years and years ago that they don't even come close to touching these days.
The progress we have made, especially in the past 3, 4, 5 years, is tremendous.
So I think to dip back into the bullying thing every now and then, it really made Alexa Bliss look like a mean girls club, like you said.
But to the other part of that, I like that Nia Jax won. It made sense. You put her up against Charlotte, that's going to make a lot of sense. You can do whatever you want to do with Alexa Bliss, who, again, I just think she's a very good character. She may be one of the other top heels in the company right now. Speaking of the fun factor you mentioned with Stephanie McMahon and Ronda Rousey, loved everything about the Daniel Bryan match.
What a great comeback.
Biggest star in the company. That got reaffirmed last night.
Yep.
Nothing about that I didn't like.
Could have been the best reaction by the crowd all night, seeing him come out.
Well, and you saw him get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have 60,000 people marking out to you doing that, the visual of that.
Yeah.
And he goes out and puts together a great performance. Sammy and Kevin went out and did what they were supposed to do. Shane did his thing. There was all these rumors about a swerve. It's a swerve, bro. And all these rumors about a swerve with Shane McMahon, which would have made no sense at all. I'm glad they went straight. I'm glad they told the story. And again, that's another one of those matches that I go, you know what, JP? Maybe it is a top 10 wrestling.
Yeah, it was a fun match. It was an exciting point of the night, and it says a lot about Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens because they were as big a part of the success of that match as Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon. Shane McMahon, who shouldn't still be doing what he's doing.
No.
There's no reason.
Speaking of a tough guy, he's a tough guy.
He's a tough guy.
He's a tough
Well,
guy.
he proved that at King of the Ring with Kurt Angle.
Well, with the glass.
With the glass,
The real
yeah.
glass. Jinder Mahal, WTF. What?
Now, that's the swerve of the night.
What?
Yeah.
Look, if you don't want to make it Rusev Day because you think maybe you can push that another 3 to 6 months and get the pop, I get that. You can put it on Randy Orton, and it's fine. I'm a Bobby Roode fan, and speaking of age, he's not a young guy either, so
No.
anything you're going to do with Bobby Roode, you got to do right now. And I think once they get Bobby Roode as a heel, things can really take off. But no one hindered Jinder on that one.
No.
I didn't like that one at all.
I thought Rusev was coming out for sure. With the, as everybody thought it would be Rusev at the end of that. But here's the thing. Here's another reason why I say maybe one of the top 10 WrestleManias. Part of WrestleMania is two things. It wraps up stories and it begins new stories.
Sure.
They just began one of the most fan favorite stories of the next 6 months.
Right.
And that's Rusev finally getting that from Jinder Mahal because no one likes Jinder Mahal.
I'm okay with Jinder Mahal. I think he's another one that gets slagged maybe a little bit too much. Mm-hmm. But that's the only rationalization I can give in terms of giving it to Jinder. That's it, is having Rusev chase him down for it.
Yeah, and that's what the story will be.
I loved Bayley pushing Sasha Banks out. Thought that was a good story. Thought the women's...
I don't like Bayley as a heel, though.
Well, but here's the argument we made last night. It wasn't like full heel. It was more like half-turn heel.
Yeah.
So if you have Bayley be a little bit of a tweener before a full heel thing, because I don't think you have a lot of range as Bayley as a full heel.
No, you don't. That's why I say I don't. I mean, she is a...
But as a tweener...
She looks like a good guy.
She just looks like a very
Whereas
nice person.
Sasha can go back and forth because she's just got that look.
Well, Sasha eventually just needs to be full-on heel.
Yeah.
She's a natural heel, too.
Mm-hmm. I think Charlotte Flair is, too.
Yeah.
I prefer
There's
Charlotte
no
Flair as a
question.
heel. I mean,
she's a Flair.
It's in her genetics to be a heel.
And, well, we didn't mention New Day, Usos, Bludgeon Brothers. Hated everything about it. Hated it. I know why they did it, and I know why that match was short. Hated it.
Yeah, you don't have a Barbarians or the Powers of Pain or anything like that right now, or Demolition. That's the closest you got with the Bludgeon Brothers, so I guess...
What kills me is you have two really good wrestlers in Harper and Rowan.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you make them the Bludgeon Brothers? Why don't you just make them Harper and Rowan? They're good enough performers.
Or just the Wyatt family.
And actually, well, the Wyatt family doesn't exist anymore, but we'll get to that in a moment. But with Harper, you have a guy who's good enough that he could be competing for the U.S. title or the IC title or what have you. This
could.
Bludgeon Brothers thing is stupid. I thought
Well, they don't have tag teams anymore.
the IC title match, I thought, was fine, good.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you expected out of that match. You could have made a compelling argument for any one of them to have the belt. It made sense for all of them.
And it would be interesting to see what they do with The Miz going forward.
They'll put the belt back on him at some point and break that record thing that he's been talking about.
But is he a face now?
He's always a heel because he's antagonistic.
Yeah.
Because The Miz is a dick. You can't have him be a babyface. He's just... Look, he's from Cleveland, okay? You're a natural heel if you're from Cleveland.
You know, I held the door open for The Miz once and he didn't say thank you. That's the absolute truth. After a SmackDown at the arena, we went to Hooters. Turns out everybody from the WWE went to Hooters, like all the talent. That's where they went.
You're not surprised by that?
No. After the show. And I get there right as The Miz walks up, and I hold the door open for The Miz. He walks in, never said thank you.
Well, maybe he's
Never
having
said thank you.
Maybe he's having a bad day.
Kayfabe.
Yeah, kayfabe. Got to keep up kayfabe. I enjoyed the Matt Hardy, Bray Wyatt thing. That was fun.
Yeah,
That was
he's
fun.
back from the lake of what was it?
The Lake of Reincarnation.
Reincarnation.
And I like that they used Vanguard 1 for the Daniel Bryan promo, but that was, to me, my favorite moment of the night in all my smarkiness was using the Vanguard 1 thing for Daniel Bryan prior to his match. I went, that's fun.
Yep.
In terms of the fun factor for this WrestleMania, I'd give it a 7 in terms of the fun factor. Top 10, you can get me maybe number 10, as high as number 9, top 10 WrestleMania.
I'd say top 5.
Yeah.
But I think it's top 10.
It was solid. It was solid, but
because when I told you that, you said it was uneven. I was like, it's WrestleMania.
Yeah.
It's always uneven.
It's still uneven.
Because when we look back on our favorite WrestleManias, we don't think about the undercard.
But that main event was so bad.
I don't think the main event was bad.
So bad.
I think that's what splits it with me and you.
So bad.
Because I thought the main event was exactly what it should have been.
That was...
It swerved the audience. You didn't have... And you have sympathy, at the end, when Roman's walking up, battered, bloody, and bruised, the crowd's not cheering that. They were silent.
No, because they were confused because it was a shit ending.
Because if you'd had Roman Reigns win that match and you'd had him compete with Lesnar through that match, you would have had WrestleMania end with him holding the title and the crowd booing him.
But that was the problem of the booking with Lesnar and Reigns in the first place, is you didn't have an out like you did last time with Seth Rollins coming in and doing the cash-in, which I think was one of the better endings to a WrestleMania, was the Seth Rollins element when they did it back in San Francisco.
Was that 3 years ago?
However long ago it was.
Yeah.
I think that was 31. Might have been 31 or 32. But crap ending. That was a turd in the punch bowl.
Oh, I don't think so.
Awful.
I don't think so.
And that's what keeps it from being maybe a little bit higher on that list.
So what would you say is your favorite WrestleMania match of all time?
That's a really good question. I think my favorite WrestleMania match of all time, Undertaker, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, the referee, in the cage.
Yeah.
Because I thought the story was done brilliantly. I thought that match...
Was that the one in Atlanta? That was the second one.
Not sure.
Yeah, that was the second one. I saw the first one at WrestleMania in Atlanta, the first Triple H versus Undertaker.
I thought that match from a storytelling standpoint was perfection. And the fact that they even broke kayfabe a little bit and all three of them were kind of doing the bro hug at the top of the stage and everything, that match may have left me the most satisfied of any match. Now, I enjoyed the Daniel Bryan run in WrestleMania 30 and all that, but my favorite match in terms of physicality, storyline, wrestling, a little bit of gaga with Shawn Michaels and the super kick, although the way overly acted reaction by Shawn Michaels after that, probably my favorite WrestleMania match because it had everything.
Yeah.
Although my favorite moment, this is going to get me in trouble, is actually two moments in the same WrestleMania, is Guerrero and Benoit combined, winning the titles.
Really?
Yeah, that's my favorite moment.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Savage Steamboat, WrestleMania 3. I think that's
fair enough.
I think that's the bar.
That may be the greatest match, not my favorite match.
I did enjoy it because I was there. Undertaker Triple H was probably the best match of that WrestleMania.
It's really good.
Yeah. Or Edge and Alberto Del Rio was pretty good that night.
That was a good match, too. That was underrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was underrated.
But the main event was Miz versus...
Was that Miz
Cena? But Cole was involved somehow. And Steve Austin was the special guest referee.
I don't remember all that.
I mean, it was weird.
Yeah.
And it was the one that The Rock was the host. He was the host of WrestleMania.
That
was the one I was at.
I think with this card being maybe the best overall in-depth card, I didn't think it was going to be the best WrestleMania, and it wasn't. It was solid. It was good. It was a 7 out of 10, and there's nothing wrong with that. You didn't come away from that saying, hey, I didn't get my $9.99.
Right. Exactly.
So it definitely did the job. But again, I can't get past the Lesnar Reigns. That left such a bad taste in my mouth.
Imagine Roman Reigns. It was all bloody. He's got a mouthful of pennies.
And with that, we're done.
Thank you.
Bye.
This has been a production of the Adam and JP family of on-demand talk radio.
AdamandJP.com.
Right now.